to the Middle East. And Patrick, the possibility of conflict between the Arab nations and Israel, which perhaps spells the end of the Abraham Accords.
Yes, very well put, Mike, and we'll explain how that is coming about. This is the big fear right now. I do scan and I do study the mainstream media very closely, especially papers of record, and daily headlines, because when they start to get into certain topics, you know that things are moving, and on this issue, things are moving in a probably not a great way for Israel or the United States, but there could be a prelude to an actual war here. In other words, we could be returning to the 1960s and 70s. So let's take a look at how. First clue, the New York Times runs this as a front page story on their print edition, as well as on their website. For Arab nations with ties to Israel, talking about the Abraham Accord, Mike, there, attacks on Qatar and Gaza City raise anxiety. Now, it's a pretty tame headline, but what are we looking at here? This is Qatar is the main focus. They just got hit, and the United States and Israel on the other side. And so this is the Arab world is now looking at Israel and the United States as kind of one unit now, and the U.S. is not able to play that sort of game of deniability or the fact that Israel's an independent actor and has its own agenda. Now, what precipitated this? Let's look at this. This was just recently the Israeli attack on the Qatari capital of Doha, attempting to assassinate the Palestinian Hamas negotiation team. That's one of the big things here that's precipitating this anxiety in the Arab world. And the other is this, which is Israel's invasion of Gaza. And you can see Benjamin Netanyahu there is all smiles right now as he sees residential buildings being downed on a daily basis in Gaza City. He says that's to prevent them from being used by Hamas. I mean, what a flimsy excuse after 2 years of this, but yet it's a lot of people are swallowing it. That was an Axios headline there. They're just kind of reporting on this, but I think the world is seeing this very differently. Now, let's look at how this is shaping up and how this is history repeating itself. Now, in terms of the Arab countries, what we're talking about here are the ones that no longer feel secure. First up is Egypt. This is probably the most important Arab country. Egypt has a peace treaty with Israel. Is that going to hold? There's al-Sisi there, President Sisi. Next up is Jordan. They also share a border with occupied Palestine and Israel. There's King Abdullah there, normally regarded as a client state of the U.S. and Britain, but now things are changing. And then next, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. You can see Mohammed bin Salman there. A lot of changes going on this week with Saudi Arabia in their stance and their position as well. And then last but not least, not an Arab country, but Turkey. And that's why we put an asterisk there. It's not an Arab country, but Turkey may find itself now in the crosshairs somewhat of Israel, and we'll explain how. Now, the most important piece, as I said, is Egypt. Let's go over and look at what the issues are for Egypt. And this is a very serious situation indeed. And so we look at this first and foremost is the issue of the Palestinians. Egypt's issue is they don't want to see the displacement of Palestinians into Egypt. Regarding this as a red line. Now, mind you, many have already been displaced into Egypt, medical evacuees and so forth. But the next one is important. They're looking for a place to host the Hamas delegation. There are people in Egypt to do it out of solidarity with the Palestinians in Egypt. So hosting Hamas negotiations could invite attacks by Israel. That could break their long-held peace agreement here. Next, Israel informed Washington they are concerned about Egyptian military buildup in the Sinai Peninsula. Okay, now Egypt has every right to move troops inside of its own borders. This kind of reminds you, doesn't it, Mike, about Western concerns of Russian troop buildups within Russian borders prior to February 2022. And we all know what happened after that. And of course, Russia was demonized and sanctioned and so forth and blamed for everything, including an 8-year civil war that was precipitated by the U.S. coup in Maidan. Let's not digress. Next, now you can see where this is heading. Next, Israeli concerns about Hamas militants who've managed to cross the border with refugees, or so Israel claims. This could provoke an Israeli attack on Egyptian soil. Egypt has already accepted 100,000 medical evacuees and others who have fled during the genocide. And last but not least, this is risking a repeat of the 1978 PLO Lebanon trap. It's important to understand history. This is what kicked off mainly what kicked off the so-called Lebanese civil war was the PLO being pushed into South Lebanon, and then Israel using that as an excuse to attack, invade, and occupy South Lebanon for many, in fact, a few decades. Okay. So you could see the exact same scenario playing out here with Egypt. Now, is this something Israel would like? Possibly. And so it seems like they're doing everything possible to make this happen. So keep an eye on this Egyptian situation. All of the signs in this New York Times article point to a narrative that is being constructed here. Next up, let's go to the Kingdom of Jordan. There's King Abdullah there. Now, mainly, there's fears that are palpable Israel forced millions of Palestinians over Jordan's border with the West Bank. That's the number one concern now for Jordan. Next, Israeli officials becoming more vocal about annexing the West Bank and the Jordan Valley, again, bordering the Kingdom of Jordan. And after the Abraham Accords, Netanyahu had declared in 2020 the Jordan Valley belongs to Israel, but temporarily held off in exchange for Arab normalization. That was a call by the UAE at the time. So you can see Israel's been using the Abraham Accords in conjunction with its own sort of expansionist military operations to basically play the West and play the other Arab countries, and in the meantime, change facts on the ground. This has been Israel's game. The problem is King Abdullah has been put in a corner by his American and British and Israeli handlers, and they made him detain and arrest over 1,000 people right after October 7th. And did so really on behalf of Israel and the United States. So his legitimacy as a ruler is really coming into question, according to the opposition there. Now, put this in context here. Marco Rubio, what was he doing in Israel recently? There he is at the Wailing Wall, putting the note in to the wall. That's the old Roman garrison wall. It's not the old temple, by the way, the old Roman garrison wall. And during his recent visit, Rubio said that the United States is warning about the recognition of the Palestinian state by other UN member states outside of negotiation. So he's saying countries don't have a right to recognize a Palestinian state unless they go into U.S.-led negotiations. So it's really an anti-sovereign or anti-sovereignty signal by Rubio and the U.S. saying they won't accept anybody having their own foreign policy on this issue. And he's basically saying that Israeli politicians' talk of annexations was a reciprocal action to unilateral moves for recognizing a Palestinian state. So what Rubio is saying is trying to twist what's actually happened and say Israel's only being aggressive because of this threat of a Palestinian state being recognized, when in fact, according to the Europeans, it's the opposite. So you can see how the Punch and Judy game is playing. So here's Donald Trump yesterday, and he's been confronted about Israel openly calling for the annexation of the West Bank. Here's Donald Trump.
But did you promise leaders this week that you would not allow Israel to annex the West Bank? Is that something that you
I will not allow Israel to annex the West Bank. No, I will not allow it. It's not going to happen.
Did you speak with Netanyahu about this directly?
Yeah, but I'm not going to allow it. Whether I spoke to him or not, I did. But I'm not allowing Israel to annex the West Bank. There's been enough. It's time to stop now, okay? Yes,
Question here is, do you actually trust Donald Trump? Do you trust that Donald Trump is what he said, does that carry any weight at all? That's what he's saying. I won't allow it, but that's not what Israel's saying. So we'll see how that one plays out. So back to the other actors here. Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. There's Mohammed bin Salman. Okay. What is the difference here? An Arab NATO or a new Middle East NATO? Saudi just announced a new strategic defense pact with Pakistan. Pakistan has nuclear weapons. This is big news. Okay. Just happened this week. okay, in conjunction with everything that we've just said this week. Next, Saudi's realizing the Abraham Accords aren't worth the paper they're written on. So I think we can say at this point, it really after the Qatar attack by Israel and the latest Gaza, Abraham Accords are dead in the water. It's only the UAE hanging on by a thread, probably. And so next, now Saudi Arabia no longer regards Iran as the primary threat in the region. Very important. So the gambit by the U.S. and Israel is basically out the window. The gambit they've been playing for a very long time is now out the window because of the actions of Israel and the U.S. And GCC ally Bahrain also now has made signals they feel insecure about this as well. So think about it. Israel's basically attacking the Arab countries. He is assassinating heads of state. They tried to kill, and somewhat successfully, most of the Yemeni parliament while they were in session. Okay, so this is what targeted assassinations, unprovoked attacks. This is what Israel's now engaged with around the Arab world. So now for Turkey, some of their military facilities were hit recently inside Syria by Israel. Okay, that includes missile stocks and other things that were dotted around in key positions in Syria. This is a change right now. And next, Erdogan's HTS Jolani project may no longer be useful for Israel and the United States. So it's past its sell-by date. They've achieved what they wanted in terms of annexing the Golan Heights. But Turkey's safe for now, so long as they're a NATO member. So long as they're a NATO member. If you start seeing talk about Turkey being kicked out of NATO by the Trump administration, then you know the game is on. So we'll go here to responsible statecraft, and they're even saying this is this week. So what I'm telling you is that a narrative is building. After Israel striking Qatar, is Turkey next? So this is a major foreign policy microphone in the United States. So some clues there. So now we're back to the end of this sort of analysis of the axis of chaos. The United States and Israel can only be described objectively as state terrorists. And they are using and are allied with very closely now Syria, that has a self-appointed president, al-Jolani, al-Sharar, whatever his name is this week, former terrorist leader, former ISIS head, deputy head, former founder of al-Qaeda in Syria. This is now one of the main tools of the United States, and that is to sow chaos in neighboring Lebanon, as well as other parts of the region. So this is where things are at right now. All of the ingredients, Mike, point to an escalation, a broader regional escalation here, if things continue on the trajectory they're currently at.
Patrick, thank you very much for that. Sorry about that. That's quite concerning. We'll talk about that in extra, I have no doubt. Now, if you like what the UK column does, you'd like to support us, then the details of how you can do that, sorry, let's take that off screen, are on the front page of the UK column website. There is a big blue button there that you can click. I want to say thank you once again to everybody that is a member or is making donations and so on. Your support is much appreciated. If you can't support us financially, please do support us by sharing our reports and our material, because that helps us beat the censorship regime in this country. Another reminder of the York event taking place on the 18th of October. Live tickets are all sold, but there's still the opportunity to watch on live stream. Please do if you possibly can. It's going to be a fantastic day, and speakers on screen at the moment, you know who they are anyway. It's going to be a fantastic day. Don't miss it. Now, Jerm is still in China, so we're showing again his discussion with Mike Eden, asking is science dead at 7 p.m. tonight. So join us live on the live stream for that. And then on Sunday at 7 o'clock, the first of the new series of the 1,000 Words podcast will be out. Let's just have a look at the trailer for that.
1,000 Words is coming to UK column, Watch Katie Jo Murphy, co-founder of Hope Sussex, sit for her portrait whilst deep diving into life, the universe and everything. First episode airs this weekend on UK Column.
£7 p.m. Sunday for that. If you didn't see the discussion I had with Vanessa on the sectarianism building in the UK and Europe, that went out at 1 o'clock yesterday. It's on the UK Column website now as an on-demand version. I want to point out two articles. One published actually at the end of August from David Miller, entitled "How the British Intelligence Network of AstroTurfed Muslim Civil Society Groups is Kept Secret and Deniable." If you haven't read this yet, please do read it and share it. But there's an update to that now, and the latest article is entitled "How Muslim Civil Society Groups Are Astroturfed into Products by British Intelligence." This is part 2 of this series of articles. It's extremely important to understand. Please read it and share it as you see fit. And then a final reminder that on Sunday, the 28th in Edinburgh, is the Food and Health Festival. Details on screen and in the show notes. Okay, let's come back